Okay, everybody, I'm back again. Got my battery charged up a bit, and so we're going to finish off with this video I was trying to do as quickly as possible. But I don't want to miss any details. So back to the last video where I got cut off with the dead battery. When it comes to establishing the full realization of the account that is constructed upon that original statement of live birth with that birth registration number assigned by the IMF in regards to your Federal Reserve notes and the Social Security account. Like I was saying, that that routing number on the back of your Social Security card is conveyed to $1, dollar for dollar, Federal Reserve notes. If you look on your $1 Federal Reserve notes, you'll see that it has a sequence of 8 numbers preceded by a letter. And that letter will be either A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, 1 through 12. And that stands for the Federal Reserve Bank that produced that Federal Reserve note. And that number coincides with the routing number on the back of somebody's Social Security card. And they print up a certain number for each account. That is where the original creation of Federal Reserve notes occurs. And then when you go throughout life and you assume debts and pay taxes and things like that without collecting dividends, showing that you owe those fines, fees, penalties, taxes, levies that are imposed. And what is it imposed? It's an imposition. An imposition is something taking you from one spot to another, and that requires force. And every last bit of it is unlawful and fraud both. Unlawful is a crime. Fraud is a legal penalty. So again, back to this Social Security account, how it all ties together with the Federal Reserve, the IMF, and it's all done through that birth registration number on the original statement of live birth. And that original statement of live birth, like I said, is just like a nation being formed under a charter through the UN. Once they establish a nation, they have to have some kind of funding for their intra-banking needs, because most countries today don't use their natural resources in exchange for equal value like Muammar Gaddafi did. Everybody's dependent on a little account balance book handed by the Vatican, who holds all the gold, and all the accounting for that ledger is done through the City of London, and all the regulations are written through DC, and all of it's all corporate, chartered through the UN, under contract. That's your trust. DC, City of London, Vatican, and that's a trust with those 3 entities performing specific duties, the Vatican being the trustor, DC being the trustee, co-trustee, co-beneficiary, and London being the other co-trustee, co-beneficiary. Both of them being debtor trustees in this case, because even that Vatican trust is a debt trust to the original creditor, and that is each and every one of us. I don't give a fuck about no papal bulls. Like I've said before, in beginning was word, and once you write it down, you've reduced it. You've taken away from the truth. You've insulted the truth. So anyway, back to that Vatican stuff. You know, they hand them that little account book. That's exactly what the Social Security does. They hand you a little account book without handing you an account book. They tell you you got to go get your own. So you sign up for a bank account that you think is yours, and it's called a personal bank account using the Social Security number. And what can banks do? Understand this one, people. Banks can operate as trust companies. Now you know why I don't do any banking. Never done any credit cards. Never done any loans. Excuse me, I've done a loan. Back when I was younger, co-signed. Mom and Dad got me a first car. Other than that, like I said, it's all fraud. And every last bit of it's written down, like I said, reduced from the truth, an insult to the truth. And that's why I ask for clarification of every fucking word, term, condition, concept, idea, vulgarity, falsity, whatever the fuck you're trying to convey. I want to know your intent. Is it for economic substance? Or is it for being fair and impartial and just letting me alone because I want nothing to do with you? So when somebody calls up claiming that there's a Social Security Administration trying to impede upon my freedom and thoughts by placing some kind of wretched fear in my mind, by using words like criminal acts, legal repercussions against my account. Hey, Social Security, I don't care if it's you, I don't care if it's some fraudster calling, IRS, IMF, Pope. I don't give a fuck about you. Unless your true intent is to love thy neighbor as you love thyself. And if you can't show that in every sense, then you're seeking economic substance. And I question it all. So anyway, I really want you people to think about this. Again, I posted a video. I've got an awesome young brother that's doing a great job in life. He's questioning everything like he's supposed to. And this has brought about amazing things in his life. One of which was being able to have his heiress born in a hospital, accepting their benefits temporarily while he was under his own covenant and doctrine of necessity both, to make sure that his child, his heiress, came into being safely and could then take her home without needing to be obligated any further for any reason whatsoever. And so he's able to get out without filling out any documents by questioning the documents and see when they're redundant and don't make sense. Unless you can make sense of them, I ain't got a reason to fill them out, because I don't babble. I don't agree to your babble. I don't agree to your babble. There we are. We're back outside again. I like it out here. That's okay. Anyway, I don't agree to anybody's babble. And therefore, I don't understand a lot of people. Period. I've gotten in the habit of questioning everything at all times. Is this real? And like the lady at the Treasury Offset Program, I mentioned, when people get a creditor calling them for a debt, they call back the creditor. And this is what this lady asked too. why I hope people are using their critical thinking and understand. All you gotta do is explain. Well, I called you because I think it's a fraud, so I wanted to check with another source. If I think it's fraud, why would I continue with it? Why would I continue with anything that, to me, I question as fraud, and nobody can tell me the truth? If they can't tell me the truth, then obviously it's fraud. Prove all things, for they know not what they do. And I shall not perish for lack of knowledge, because I'm told to ask, and ye shall receive. So I ask again, where do you get your delegation of authority? Somebody writing shit down on some piece of paper? Some piece of paper with some pretty fancy edges and a bunch of numbers and a face on it? And a building on the back? All of it, every last bit of it, every last one of them, merely symbolic and using symbols. A letter is a symbol. Words and terms and conditions are made up of symbols. Think about this stuff, people. Ain't none of it true. None of it. Even let me help you understand something. When you talk to these people that are going to court for murder charges and stuff, and you think about who's the plaintiff. And a lot of times you'll see in the state bringing a claim on behalf of. You can't do that. The state can't bring a claim. Just like an attorney can't sit up there and bring a claim. You just can't do this stuff. If you're going to make a claim, you got to make it verbally. Eventually, you got to get on that stand and vocalize it. It's the only true way to make a claim. And if you can't get people to understand your claim in simple words, then you're going to allow them to believe the words that the prosecution's putting before them. That's why I question everything. And another thing, like I mentioned earlier, just to help people tie things in, like I said, the state's making all these claims, right? And everybody thinks the state's got all this damn authority, and they think they've got these sovereign powers. And when in reality, like I said, if you do a UCC, somebody's claiming a debt, and say it's the state, and you do the UCC or UCC 11 lien information, and you find out whether there's a lien or not. Do a backup check and call the Treasury Offset Program. Okay? Now, if the state's the one making the claim and they actually have a lien, understand they're operating as a private corporation. Okay? And this is what I'm talking about. Something doesn't make sense here. They're operating in a public capacity. So is it being claimed as a public debt or a private debt? Okay? So when you do this UCC 11 lien information, and it shows that the state's making a lien, now you have to find out, is it a public debt or a private debt? Okay? This is going to trip them up. This is their catch-22. If they're claiming a public debt, okay, well, if it's a public debt, then obviously it belongs to the public. Who's the public? Well, that depends. See, and this is what I'm talking about. Their vulgarity and ambiguity is just pathetic. Okay, we have the general public, we have a specific public, and we have a special public. We have certain publics. All kinds of different publics. You have to determine which public they're talking about. Okay, well, if they're claiming a public debt, well, what's the public entity that's claiming the debt? Okay? And if they're claiming a private debt, okay, then that tells you that the state is a private entity. So again, you call up the Treasury Offset Program and you ask them, is there a debt being claimed against my account? Either on the public side or the private side. Okay, now if they show a debt on the private side from the state in a public capacity, proving that they're a private entity, it shows you everything's fucking false. It shows you how simple this shit is to beat them. I can beat you just on the claim of public and private debt. Which is it? Clarify for me, please. Is it a public debt or a private debt? Okay, if it's a public debt, then please clarify the entity that is claiming this debt. Are they a public entity or a private entity? Now, if they're a public entity and they're claiming a public debt, is it not U.S., a public corporation, responsible for all public or all debts, public and private, under the United States Code 18 U.S.C. 8? What is it these people don't get? And that's why I say, remember that thing about economic substance? What is the purpose of Title 18 U.S.C. Section 8? It's to clarify purpose. You have to be able to read it. It's like the uniform in that 1-103.3, where it talks about the code is to be or the law is to be uniform throughout all jurisdictions. Well, if the code is to be uniform, or the law is to be uniform throughout all jurisdictions, they have to mention each of those things in all jurisdictions. And that's what they do. They clarify that you're not liable as the authorized representative. They're clarifying that you're not liable as authorized representative for the authorized signature that you give on the instrument for the person in the instrument. And that's telling you that those are two different things. They're two different entities. One is private. The other is public. Okay? So I really want you people to start doing some critical thinking and start questioning everything. Is it public or private? Is it a debt? If so, who's really the debtor? Who's really the creditor? Are you giving it credit? Are you giving it value? Then you truly are the creditor, aren't you? How fucked up is that? I don't give anything any credit except that right there. What I call the all. The voice of truth. And I hope everybody's going to start asking so you can start hearing that voice of truth. Because like I said, when you start asking these questions and nobody can give you a definitive answer and explain this shit, then how can they enforce it? They can't. See, that the big thing that David Jose's been talking about a lot lately, and it's really going around, I want people to share this, is, you know, the Social Security Administration, Social Security Act is the one that does all the Title IV insurance. And like I said, it's a military medical insurance. And nowhere in that does it confer any right of enforcement, period. None of their laws do. Not a single one. Period. They only import the things that they can do. They don't import any enforcement against not doing them or doing them wrong. They import that if you continuously abridge the rights of people, you don't have that right. So if you implement, say, the Commerce Clause or the Coinage Clause, and people just don't want to have anything to do with it, it's up to them. You can't force them. So if it's my choice to do nothing, to live my life by nothing but barter and trade, you have no right as a third-party intervener, no right as an officious intermeddler to impede upon my rights in any manner whatsoever. You have no right of enforcement. All you have is some kind of words written down on a piece of paper that a bunch of people believe. That aren't true. And like I said many times, get yourself a concise English handbook and learn how to proofread their documents. So when you accept their documents, proofread it, hand it back, and act like a fucking English teacher and tell them, I'm sorry, you failed on this. I can't comprehend this offer. Therefore, even though it seems like I might accept it, I have to hand it back for dishonor. I can't read it. Unless you can speak to me with honor, in truth, I do not accept anything. Period. And it's that simple. You got to have your own constitution. You got to know what constitutes yourself. So, again, I urge people to think about this, and it all starts with that IMF birth registration number that they put on an original statement of live birth that is an unlawful conveyance. Yes, Cody, the Title 4D ran through the executive branch of the government under the legislation of both Social Security Act and the Federal Reserve Act. The Federal Reserve Act, along with Social Security Act, is what allows you to be transfer agents as person. Authorized representative, giving an authorized signature by the authorities that enacted those particular laws to transfer obligations of the United States through financial transactions of debt instruments, either by pledging through registering or by acquisitioning through force and imposing of taxes, fees, fines, penalties, levies. It's all quite simple if you learn the real words that they're using against you, and it's basically simple as what I just said. Prove the fraud by proofreading those documents. Hey, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. God bless. Thanks for everybody tuning in to help me finish up this second video. Have a great day. And remember, I love y'all. Bye.